Hello, thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. I'm your host Paul, and today's date is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. This is episode 26. Again, like as usual, I want to thank all the support we've been getting. We've been getting a lot of emails, people giving us different suggestions, writing in, telling us how much they appreciate the show, giving us different suggestions for topics and whatnot. And our email address is recoveryrecordings615@yahoo.com. You can also find us on a lot of the major platforms, Audible, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We've been getting a lot of attention on those too. And today we have a special guest coming all the way from Westminster, Colorado. How you doing, Judy?
Good. Thank you for asking.
I appreciate you coming on here. I've been waiting on this for a couple months now, or a few months actually. When we first talked, you was in Italy.
Yep.
Yeah.
My happy place.
Yeah. And Judy's sobriety day is August 17th, 1982. Is that correct? 82?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, 1980. That's awesome. That's amazing. And for the listeners, we're gonna do a 4-part series on traditions in all our affairs, and it's just practical applications of the principles, the traditions, in everyday walks. And we have several episodes planned. So next month we have tonight's the beginning of it. Then we have May 4th, May 11th, and May 25th for those that if you like what you hear tonight and you want to follow along. We'd love to get any feedback. If there's any questions too, that give you the opportunity to ask certain questions, you can send some questions in, and maybe I can get them to Judy. So Judy, let's talk a little bit about what your early days in sobriety. Where'd you sober up at?
I sobered up in Lakewood, Colorado, at a little club there. That was near my house. It had to be near my house because I was walking, didn't have a car, and I had been driving a relative to AA meetings. She had asked if I'd drive her. She had a couple of car problems there for a while, and stuff happened, and so I took her to a few AA meetings, and people kept saying, keep coming back. And she said, well, she doesn't have to come back. She doesn't need to be here. And I kept thinking, well, I probably don't need to be here. I'm not an alcoholic, but since you've never been with me at 2:00 in the morning, how would you know? And so I took her, and then I sat through some meetings, and there was a certain open invitation that kept showing up. And one day, I took her to a meeting at this club close enough to my house. And when she moved on to, another whatever, I stayed. And I started coming to AA meetings daily.
Nice.
It's a long story. It's a long personal story. But I started coming to meetings daily. And about a year later, to tell you how dense I was, about a year later, a guy who died recently, Bob Olson, you may know him, Paul.
Yeah.
Bob Olson, who spoke around the world. He was a great advocate for AA. He came to this little club where I was getting sober. Well, I wasn't getting sober, but I was attending meetings. And he came to this little club, and I usually just kind of shrunk into the corner, never said a word to anybody, never introduced myself, but I'm Judy and I'll pass. That was what I said for a year at every meeting. But I was soaking it up. I was soaking you guys up. I was hearing what you talked about and thinking about them. So one night, Bob came in with a friend doing some missionary work, and he said, there's all kinds of people here because this is an open meeting of alcoholics. You might be from any kind of program. But what we do here in AA, because this is an AA meeting, what we do here is we stop drinking. And you could have knocked me over. I said to myself, we do? I didn't know we stopped drinking here. I don't know what I thought.
Yeah.
I think I just thought I was coming in and getting some relief and a lot of attention. Yeah. And then I'd walk home. I was trying to be one of the crowd, but I was drinking on the way there. I was drinking on the way back. I never tried to stop drinking. I didn't think I was an alcoholic. So that was kind of the beginning of breaking down some of Judy's thinking.
Nice.
Took a long time to get to me.
Nice. Yeah, I get it.
And it took even longer for me to get a program. So, yeah, I'm a slow one.
How old was you when
we
you
don't
came
talk about that, Paul. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. So let me ask you this then. So tonight we're going to be talking about the traditions. And when you first come in, like you said, it took you a while to before you found the program or got into the program. What about was the people? Like I would imagine, someone like Bob O being there. When you found yourself in AA, was the group you were in or the meeting you were going to, was it a pretty solid group? I mean, were they? No.
No, I wouldn't say that it was solid by today's standards.
Okay.
It was an open meeting. It was a club. There was a lot of he-ing and she-ing going on.
Yeah.
There were a lot of new people coming in all the time. Somebody was messing with somebody. The safe kept getting stolen. It was at the height of the new treatment facility boom.
Wow.
Money had hit AA in the form of treatment.
Yeah.
And so everybody was crazy with how do we deal with all these people that come in every day. And I never dealt with anybody. I never had a phone number or a friend or a name or anything. I just came in, sat down, listened, and went home.
Yeah.
I knew that I wasn't an alcoholic, but they let me come, so I came.
And how long?
I've never been in Al-Anon or any of the others of the programs, and it took me so long to begin to drop some of the delusional thinking that kept me away from getting sober.
Wow.
I was a single mom with 4 kids. My house was in foreclosure. I'd driven over one of my own kids. All kinds of stuff had happened.
Yeah.
But I didn't get that any of that had to do with alcohol.
Wow.
I just didn't get it. And I'd never been to treatment, so I'm just a straight AA baby.
Nice.
I wouldn't go to the group conscience. I wasn't interested in anything that didn't look attractive to me.
Yeah.
I'd wear my heels and I'd clickety-click late into the meeting. Don't notice me. Ha, ha, ha. And they'd read that thing, the part of the preamble that talks about not having any sect, denomination, and I'd, of course, mouthy as heck, I'd say, no sex. Yeah, just as rude could be. I really was. Today, I sponsor a lot of those bad girls.
You were divinely crafted. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's nice.
You might say that, but I am really clear how clueless one can be and still get recovery eventually.
Uh,
If you just keep coming back and doing what's in front of you to do.
yeah.
There's a lot of grace out there, isn't there?
Amen. Amen. Reminds me of like my buddy had when I first got sober. This guy had probably close to 40 years at the time, and he used to always say, this thing works in spite of me. Thank God for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take a sponsor. I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't share. I wouldn't do any steps. I wouldn't let God in. I mean, there was like complete denial. And that lasted about a solid year. And then it began to crack a little bit. But I still will, and I've said this a lot, that it was at 6 or 7 years when I was invited to a big book study that I had been sober all that time. You wouldn't think that was possible, but it is. And I had been sober that time, but I could not deal with life. I had none of the internal adjustments that the book talks about, becoming different. I had none of that. I was just me without booze. And about 6 years, I began to disintegrate and was invited into a big book study. And after about a year, I became a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I knew what that meant.
Wow.
And I knew what I was doing here. And I knew that I was charged that once I had been to one of those, that it was my job to do that with others. And therein is my life changed for the better for every year since then.
Wow.
But it took what it took. And, I thought I was doing just fine. I think there's a lot of people that think they're doing just fine till they don't do fine anymore.
Yeah. Was it
because we did the outside stuff but didn't get to the inside stuff. And we don't have to do the inside stuff if you're not really an alcoholic, right?
Amen. Yeah. So what about what was it? Was it like someone you particularly met, or was it somebody you could hear all of a sudden, or your life kind of got
one person I could hear always, Don Pritz.
Nice. Yeah.
Don invited me to a 6 a.m. meeting an hour from my house, or 6:30 a.m. meeting an hour from my house. And I said, well, tongue in cheek, well, I'd just love to, but I can't. I have to be at work. And he said, no problem. We'll move it up to 6 a.m. so you can make it. So, he was always the person with the gift that people could hear. So many people could hear Don that couldn't hear anybody else, and I'm one of those.
Wow.
I have been blessed with 3 or 4 people in my life that I can hear totally.
Yeah.
And blessed with having them sponsor me and be friends and befriend me and walk with me that amazing journey.
That's awesome. So how long? So what? So you said you were 6 years sober at this point when you around there? Okay. When something finally, it was just. What do you think? It was just his presence. I mean, what do you think was going on?
No, not at all. I think some of us have very special gifts.
Yeah.
And he certainly had the gift that other people could hear him in their soul in a way that you can't hear most people. If last week somebody posted his talk at the International in Seattle. It was online. If it's not around, let me know and I could give it to you. But he had just come back from Russia not too long before then. But he was just a guy. He was just a guy, but he had a unique gift.
Yeah.
And he completely refused notoriety. He completely refused to become a somebody. He completely refused to become a somebody. He said to me that the most dangerous thing he ever did was to speak in AA, because the ego was such a danger to everybody, and everybody wanted him to speak all the time. So he had to work at keeping himself right-sized.
Yeah.
And he did. So ordinary people could hear him.
Yeah. So
A great gift. We've been given such wonderful people ahead of us, you know?
Yeah. I would imagine just listening to him talk, like, because he was Fritz was a big traditions concept guy. He was I think what was it, 80 or 89 when he went over to Russia around that time, and wasn't it somewhere around there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe before then. I think he spoke at the 90, so it must have been in the late 80s. He was a trustee, and his job as trustee was to go with a delegation. And it's a marvelous story. It's just a marvelous story.
Yeah.
And they spoke with a lot of people. And Don has always said, I didn't have to do a lot. All the important people took care of things. I just made friends with the drivers.
Interesting. That's funny. So that was probably your introduction to a lot of this stuff then, huh? To a lot of the...
Yeah. Well, Don didn't even say a lot of things. He did them. If I can quote him, he would start a talk with, "I'm Don and I'm an alcoholic." "Oh no, I'm Don and I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous today. I have a home group and a sobriety date and a sponsor," or something like that. But he always said he was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he claimed that membership with a home group. And he never said it's because of that, but I know he always tied those two things together.
Nice.
And he sponsored a lot of bad characters. And he brought them into his home. He never had a bit of fear about it. So we follow the footsteps of some very big giants.
It's funny that you had mentioned the 6 a.m. thing. I was actually listening to one of his talks earlier today, and he was talking about how it's whenever he first starts sponsoring people, he has them meet him there at 6 a.m. And he also talked about...
Exactly.
Yeah, he said the home group also. He said, if you don't want to be there, you won't be there. It's not you don't have much dead weight.
Said very little dead wood at our meetings at 6 a.m.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so true, right? And I really love how he said whenever they had wrote in or contacted the central office in that area, they were like, "Oh, you can't you can't call yourself an AA group." He said that they quickly reminded them that they serve them. Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point.
He was very clear.
Yeah.
About many things, and one of the few guys who was able to hear women clearly without it being a strange male and female thing as well.
Nice.
I don't know. I just think he has special gifts.
Yeah.
Just an ordinary guy, but an ordinary guy with some special gifts.
Very cool. Yeah.
And he always said that he owed his life to AA, so he spent his life giving it back.
Nice.
Yeah. And the summer before he died, or the winter before he died, really, a lot of folks met. We just followed him when he couldn't go out. We went to him.
Yeah.
People would go pick him up for breakfast in the morning, and we'd talk AA, and people would come and do a Wednesday meeting on his porch. We'd talk AA because we all knew time was running out, and we were greedy for more.
Wow.
It's true.
That's interesting. I'm sure we're going to, over the next month or so, we're going to hear a lot of cool stories about Don. I'm super excited about it.
I try not to trade on Don's name. It was his experience.
Yeah.
And Don was very clear that each person needs to be who God would have them be.
Nice. Yeah.
He never wanted people to try to be mini-me's.
Yeah.
He always was a proponent that was so clear that we each have a responsibility to become that which God would have us be.
That's cool. Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
This podcast has really taught me a lot of that. And also, in all kinds of different ways, not just with myself, but also the context of like having all these different people with all different walks of life, and we're talking about a lot of the same stuff, and everyone has their own little flavor of it, and their own little
Yeah.
and it's cool because like sometimes they will completely contradict themselves, like each other, but they're all able to have their
Right.
own experience, right? And all of them are right.
Right.
You get what I mean? It's so cool. It's opened me up to a lot of that stuff.
AA is pretty contradictory anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I mean, it really is. AA is you might as well get some enjoyment out of that fact. It's not illogical in many ways.
yeah. Yeah. And the tradition stuff is actually kind of added to all that, right? Like
Right.
some of the stuff we're about to go into is kind of leads up to that, right? I mean,
Right.
yeah. So let's talk about some tradition stuff. Let's first off, I'd like to tell you thank you. I'm super excited about this. I have a little bit, I've went through the traditions and the AA literature, and then also several couples from my home group about a year ago. We went through Dave and Polly. They have like a little workbook. It's like
right.
And we did that together. That was pretty cool. As a group, and then so I'm excited.
I think Dick and Peggy Martin did some of that too.
Yeah. Me and my buddy Mike were talking about this, and I actually have that talk on the Three Legacies Recovery Recordings YouTube channel for anybody that's there's several different talks about application of traditions and relationships. If you just look up traditions, Three Legacies Recovery Recordings and traditions, it's any of those that are listening. There's all kinds of different stuff on it. So super excited to get maybe a little bit of different context tonight.
Well, I'd like to tell you a lot of things that would sound good, but I guess what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to stick pretty much to opinions that are mine.
Nice.
They might not match someone else's, but they're mine. And those are opinions about what this stuff means and how we can do it. But it's not, I can't speak for AA, certainly. I can only speak to my experience. And that's the thing that I bring to my life today that I didn't know when I first was the person I described to you when I first got here. I have been transformed in many ways. If I could talk for a few minutes about Tradition 1, would that be okay?
Absolutely. The floor is yours.
Because here's the reason. I spent a lot of sober time focusing outside of myself on everything but spiritual development inside of me. And that exhibits itself in a lot of different ways. And one of the things that happened in my life that I'm Miss AA, right? I'm going to the group. I've got a home group. I'm participating in service. And my sober marriage is falling apart. Not because of all that stuff. We're both doing the same stuff. But we reached a place after some years in the marriage where we were falling apart. We didn't like each other. I was talking to my sponsors and people out of town because I knew you don't mess where you sleep. You don't ruin your reputations of others at your home group, for example. So we did the best we could, but we weren't liking each other. And that's about the time that I began to realize that love alone, desire alone to make a marriage, make a family, make things work is not enough. And that I was going to have to apply something is what my sponsor was telling me. Try being a wife, head of a family, and a worker among workers. I'd never even known what I was supposed to do with that. My dad had died when I was young. I didn't know I didn't know what I was trying to achieve, and I didn't know what it looked like. And along the way, I picked up a couple of things. One of them was Bill Wilson's essay on emotional sobriety, which really was a foundational piece for me. It turned my head 360 degrees all the way around, It was a big deal. And then I started, I'm not sure that I remember exactly how it started, but I began looking at traditions. And maybe I went to somebody's tradition talk. I can't tell you. But what happened was that I began looking at traditions as an adjunct to my life. I was having trouble at work. I was having trouble at home, was not having trouble in AA, but I was coming out of my skin. If anybody's ever been sober enough to be coming out of their skin, they know what I'm talking about. It's not alcohol. It's an ism. I got the ism bad. So we've got a triangle upside down, right?
Yep.
We've got no list of principles. I've got enough arrogance that I won't go to anything in service, but I'm trying to show up. And I finally realized that I had passed a dependency. I was independent when I got married, and I had passed the dependency subtly. I didn't know I'd done it. It was a mystery how that happened, but I found I was like getting neurotic and unhealthy around dependency with my husband and with life in general. And so when I started looking at traditions, I was shocked to find out that they are part of a whole bunch of traditions that help me have, not just traditions, concepts too, that help me have healthier relationships with those around me. Now, there's no list of principles. Paul, you've probably heard people say, we have 36 principles.
Yeah.
And everybody says, well, where's the list?
Yeah.
There's no list. There's a bunch of opinions. People can make a list and put them out there. Some people think each step is its own principle, but when they kept saying that at the beginning of meetings, I didn't know what they were talking about. And I'm a person who likes to know what people are talking about. So I started to look, what does it mean? What do the words mean? What do the English words on the paper say? And I got that from that big book study I was talking about. And now I had to look at some other things. So we don't have a list of principles, but we tell everybody to practice them, right?
Yeah.
So we're nothing but contradictory. We represent all of this with an upside down triangle to make it even worse. It's so perfect for us. We're so goofy. But, that's so. How does this triangle apply to me and to my life now that I'm sober? And now I've been challenged by all sorts of new thoughts, new language, new ideas. It's easy to begin to build a rigid view of that triangle. With some time, by now I'm 42 years sober. I'm supposed to know everything, right? I should be applying for sainthood by now, except that there's this ism thing, right? We got alcoholism, and it doesn't require a drink. We occasionally get disconnected enough from our base that we start acting out in wonky ways. So all of us seem to be about, in some way, understanding the simple program, but our simple program has about 1 million pieces of the jigsaw puzzle to try to understand. Again, we're a little contradictory. So the substance of this triangle starts with a recovery side, and I want to say that's where we start with a first step. Because if I don't understand what's wrong, how do I know what to fix or where I belong? I don't know how to do steps. I don't know how to do anything. It's a first step is essential. If we don't accept that, we don't accept the rest of the steps, most of us, or we don't. And this is my experience. I didn't concede to my innermost self. I thought I was kind of a problem drinker for about 6 years. Problem drinker doesn't have to really do the program. But what if I'm an alcoholic and I unreservedly have to do this stuff? And I have to allow myself to change, and I do some inner work. It's not therapeutic work. It's therapeutic, but it's not therapy work. It's therapeutic work. I don't get better inside without doing some hard work. So we start repairing some damage, and my damage was by now at home. I've got a program. I'm sober. We've been making amends to everybody on, that we can make amends to. I've got some stories around that. Someday I'll tell you. And still you can have runaway alcoholism. It's like having split ends or curly hair or big toes. It's like it's something that's right on you, right? The ism can drive your actions even when we're free. So when I got into understanding that traditions might have some of the answers, I began to look at them, and I found that if I do the first step, I can work my way into alcoholism recovery. If I work the first tradition, I can work my way into group and relationship recovery. And the same goes for concepts, by the way. Those can be applied in every aspect of my life as well, or most aspects. So we help others, right? You're helping others with a podcast. I help others in the things I do. These conditions that we do, they're pretty critical, right?
Yeah.
For every person's recovery from alcoholism. And we do this 12-step thing. So when we talk about the steps, we have to get the first step. Our first 11 steps prepare us for the true work of AA, which is working with others.
Yeah.
The first 11 steps prepare us for the work of AA. So what happens then? In the 12 steps starts talking about what that work is. So the traditions are similar. That's my long, windy explanation. The traditions are similar. The first tradition tells us what the goal is, and the last one tells us how to practice in the world. And in between, it sets out all of the ways in which we can screw it up or we can make it better. See, over time, if you don't agree with me, you don't have to agree with me, but I think I'm right anyway. So in between setting out this first one, which is what I really want to focus on, this is the one word tradition that we can't live in the world in peace without. And it talks about unity. Now, I don't mean agreement or speaking with one voice when I say unity. That's a misnomer that we all have to agree to have unity. In AA, that's never going to happen. Dissension, communication, conversation, and a common goal is tied up in our service to others. When we do other stuff, and it's been known that we do a lot of other stuff, we get sidetracked. When we get sidetracked, when we get too much money, when we get full of ourselves, we get notoriety, all these kinds, there's lots of ways to get sidetracked. And when we do it, we sacrifice unity of the whole fellowship. So, we have a sponsor. You and I have talked about sponsorship. It's, a sponsor knows where the snakes are hiding. That's all. Traditions that follow the first one are about how we can screw this up. That for the sake of the welfare of our society, we're asked to set aside the individual, the group, the areas. You and I lay aside our desire, our ambition, and actions that could bring some serious division to the whole thing, or lose for us the confidence of the world, because all that we are is built on trust. Trust is a really big word for us. And it builds on trust, and we can lose that by how we act, how we manage our business, how we manage our lives, how we act in the world. So there's lots of ways to screw this thing up, right? For me, it's my ambitions, my importance, my best and my worst intentions. They get in the way. So I want to say, when I'm talking about my big book, and I was taken through it word by word, and I've taken others through it that way, it says in my book, practice these principles in all my affairs. So what does that mean? All of these statements, what does it mean? I'd like to keep my AA life pure and honorable and sound good, do good, look good. But how do I take it to my home where they know me? How do I take it to my work where I have a terrible tendency to get my ego involved? Never until I got to this place in my life did I realize that I have never tried or striven, strove, whatever. I have never tried to aim for unity and humility. Never. So I just get to live this stuff a day at a time and make that a different goal, right? When I practice, I make different decisions if I believe unity is the answer.
Wow. So true.
I do. And I do at work if I think unity is a functioning primary value. I have a better home life. There's trust between us. That delicate, oh so fragile thing called trust. The one so many of us didn't have when we came in. And often afterwards, we do some things that even sober destroy it, right? So I'm one of those people, just a personal thing. I need a lot of comfort in my relationship to, I want to be comfortable is what I'm trying to say. A lot of us, when we get here, what we're really struggling with is what I like to think are the A words: approval and admiration and appreciation. There's a bunch of them, applause, bunch of tabletop dancers. We all want a little applause. So what we want is comfort for the bruised and damaged person in us. The alcoholic who has shamed themselves, embarrassed themselves, given up on their ambitions and their hopes, and sold out everybody they loved. Most of us are that kind of alcoholic. Not everybody, but most of us are.
Wow.
And we get here and we don't have booze to turn to, but we still want comfort. So without finding comfort, we don't stay sober. That's part of why our community, one talking to another, one arm around the shoulders of another, Kleenex and tears shared. All of these are ways to build community and help someone find comfort, because new people don't have habits yet. Comfort in community takes a while to grow, and trust takes a while to regrow, and all of the steps call us back to making peace. But what if you're new? You haven't done all the steps yet. We hit the street with our amends and things begin to be different. We start paying everybody back. Then we want to make amends to all our old broken relationships. Oh, yeah. Maybe I'll get a second chance at this one. Well, as I made my amends, I began to look the others in the eye as more of an equal. And so when I'm looking for comfort, I actually, AA has given me a greater degree of tolerance for discomfort, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
You know, most of us just picked up a drink knowing there was comfort in a bottle. Now we have to find another source. And that is certainly partially something spiritual. Ease and peace are spiritual terms, non-material, not found in the realm of, say, new clothes, new boys, new girls, furniture, sparkly stuff. Although I thought so for a long time. You know, the I'll be okay when, ... I'll be okay when. It changes what the when is. So we're here, and I'm being asked to do something spiritual at a time when I'm already sober and my life has fallen through the floor. And it defies all good sense to me. So each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is but a small part of a great whole, long form of tradition one. I belong. I'm a piece of something bigger than me. AA must continue to live, or most of us will surely die. Hence, our common welfare comes first. But individual welfare follows close afterward. So if I'm going to apply that to my family, to my home, if we unpack it a little bit, when the group forms, they first discover that we're dependent on each other, right? We get kind of desperate sometimes, more connected than we've been in any other group. And that's part of the reason for some of that desperation. New people need to hang together to find some comfort from their new life. Not a diagnosis, but the comfort from sharing of great experience. We need each other in a big sense. So having a community in AA for me has been about being able to make mistakes with each other, right? To not feel judged when I make my many mistakes, because I've done a lot. To learn and grow and maybe have a role here in as we share journeys together. This is really important because this tradition just said the group comes slightly before the needs of the individual. And yet everything that I read in our latest self obsession with ourselves is that myself needs to come before everybody else. I need to love before I can love. I need to love before I can care about a group. And AA says the group comes slightly before the needs of the individual. So we protect the group in the meeting first. And then we take care of the people. Whether that's me or you or anybody else, but we're going to take care of the group. Isn't that funny? It's a funny thing. It's kind of anti-culture. Well, why? Because the group isn't going to get much out of a meeting if one person is off their meds and they're ranting or threatening or hitting on, or, we can do a lot of damage to AA by our behavior when somebody is there. And by protecting the group, we also protect each individual within the group. Unity is a pretty big word, so it means we get somebody to make coffee because that's welcoming. We get somebody to greet because that is too. Somebody made to run the technology, somebody to speak, and maybe a GSR to reach out to other groups like ourselves. We pay a little bit of money and we clean up so we can stay. We treat the church or the group where we meet, the place where we meet, well enough that they want to have us there, and that maybe if they have a drunk that comes there, they might say, there's this group and they're kind of all right. But we can't do these without the whole group trying to participate. But what we don't do is kind of important too. So, we don't have in our group, we haven't had a problem with 13 stepping. But if we did, it would be a group problem, not an individual one, right?
Yeah.
We don't advertise as a group. We don't put any other groups down. The individual in our group should be given some protection, if you will,
Amen.
from the worst of us. And we do that slowly because the unity is precious. And we support that with group consciences and group inventories and maybe a lunch or a dinner and phone calls and, the kinds of things that build a group a little stronger. And by being part of that group, Judy gets to master some of my own worst shortcomings about being right. So how do I, it's true.
Yeah.
So how do I do that with the family? It's really a big question. If I put the unity of the family first, my misbehavior gets a lot less, frankly, because a lot of things I do and did were destructive to the unity of the group. Doing what I want to do when I want to do it, for example. I won't go into detail on this podcast, but I didn't put unity first when I was married the first time either.
Yeah.
And I acted badly. I didn't give the kids a chance to be a part of something. So we were like a little splinter group of people all living their own lives under the same roof. Unity didn't enter into it. When I put it first, I evaluate what I'm going to do as to how its effect might be on the family. Maybe the small family, maybe a bigger family. What's the impact of what I'm going to do? And then I have to say at work, I was also a lousy employee. So when I talk about sharing my experience, that's my experience. I was so wrapped up in wanting to be the best employee that I became the worst employee. Because my ego needs weren't met, we would gossip, we would talk ugly about other people, we'd carry stories, we'd carry things like, if there was a chance to throw a little steamer into the middle of the room and see if you could make a little excitement, I was all for it. And as the result, I was belligerent in times when that was not appropriate to be. And I helped the group not be a solid working group. And they didn't deserve that from me. It wasn't even on my radar, Paul. I didn't know that. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I was protecting a fragile ego that didn't think it got enough attention, that felt bad because it wasn't being respected enough.
Wow.
And I didn't apply what I learned in AA to what I was doing out in the world on a daily basis. So I share that with you because because I think this is a powerful tool for anybody who's got relationship problems in their work, in their home, in their family, or in their group. That once you say, what would it take to build this differently and support unity? Like, how would what I'm about to do affect the group? I might be making different decisions. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Man, you just touched on so much. I really like how earlier you said I didn't know what I was trying to achieve, and I didn't even know what it looked like, right? And it's crazy because, like, if you don't have, that's why conversations and just talks, all this stuff for me is so important, because if you don't have any context, you don't understand how important it is, right? You don't, how do you know what you don't know, right?
I didn't know. I truly was sober and acting like a drunk.
Yeah.
In the sense, in the sense that I couldn't apply these traditions to the life I was living. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they didn't enter into my mind.
Yeah.
I didn't see the effect I had. I felt like the person who had no effect. Stick your finger in a glass of water and see how big an impression you make when you pull your finger out, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think I had any effect anywhere. I felt more powerless. And I can say now, I can see I was trying to grab at any kind of power and authority where I could get it. But what I was doing was destructive to all the things I was trying to achieve. Never occurred to me to be cooperative, to be the first one to look for an answer, to try to make the whole work group look good. It just never occurred to me.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was sober, by the way. And it still didn't occur to me.
Interesting.
I just didn't know. And since my marriage was in trouble, I didn't get it there either. But I began slowly, little by slowly, to make a few changes and to listen to some folks that might not even have been in AA about, I've got a daughter who did some Al-Anon, and she told me once, I don't need the head job anywhere. She said, I like to be the second. What I like to do is to make my work group look great and know that I help them look fabulous.
Wow.
And my head said, who does that? There'll be lucky people who hire somebody like that.
Yeah.
Because their ego's in the right place.
Yeah.
Being of service to another person might mean a whole lot different way of being in either business or in your family. And it doesn't mean that you always agree with people. That is not what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm
considering the good of the whole and looking to see what might help achieve that.
Yeah.
So that for me is a powerful first tradition.
Wow. Yeah. That is huge.
It applies to every aspect of our lives. You'll hear me say this many times if we do this many times. In AA, we are a tapestry made up of many, many threads. And somewhere in the book, Bill talks about resentment being corrosive. Well, resentment and fear, I think it's fear that's corrosive. Resentment and fear between them are corrosive to the fabric of my AA because corrosion means it like rots everything out. And my resentment and fear drove my actions instead of finding a way to translate what I was doing in AA into the other areas of my life. So that tapestry has lots of very different threads in it. I see big, thick threads and shiny threads and tiny little gold threads and big, burly, woolly threads. I see all kinds of threads coming together in AA. And it is our very differences that help build that into the tapestry it is. So I'm all about differences, becoming the person God would have you be. And then somewhere we'll talk about having the discussions that allow us all to be who we are and take our place as a valued, belonging member of Alcoholics Anonymous, or belonging to a family, big or small, or belonging to a work group, big or small, and to take our place and not corrode it, but to be part of that tapestry that helps it be strong.
Wow.
I think that's a spiritual goal, actually. Sure isn't material. It's spiritual.
It's character. Wow.
So I hope that's useful to someone. I could go into tradition too, but it's been a long talk. I don't want to bore anybody. How about we do a little more too next week or next time?
Yeah.
I think, Paul, you gave a date. May 4th. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, May 4th. For all the listeners, we got May 4th, May 11th, May 25th, and it sounds like we'll probably add some. I'm loving this. Yeah.
Well,
there's so much right here.
Be less wordy next time.
No. Don't be. It's like I'm sitting here soaking in this.
I'm here by the grace of God. And we do these first things. We talk about it at first. There's nothing as important as getting the first.
Wow.
The reason, the why. And then we can go through and see all the ways in which we screw it up. Like, oh, well, I don't want to go into it. I don't want to open up that yet. But, you know, a first step means I'm coming all the way in, sitting all the way down, giving up the fight, wanting to work for unity instead of disruption, right? So a principle for living successfully with others starts there.
Wow.
And then we can take it further.
Wow, I'm sitting here like I'm just resting in this, just soaking this up. It's interesting. You just touched on so many. Just thinking that. Again, it makes me think of how important, honestly, like dialogue or conversation, or like, because the truth is like you just touched on so many things that I would have never even considered, honestly, had you not talked about it. It makes me think, like, it's funny, I guess probably a little bit of an ego or whatever, but there's this, like, the next side of me that's like, well, how do you fix it, right? Or how do you grow towards that, right? So let me ask you that, like, how do you grow towards that? A lot of yeah.
Well, let me just suggest that, you know, the expression, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Once you see it, you can't unsee unity either.
Yeah.
And we'll start talking about all of that. How do I search for my place? How do I search for my purpose? How do I know that what that liar alcohol does, you know? What's my responsibility? And what's my own business to mind and not yours? I love the mind your own business sorts of traditions. Because I would mind everybody's business. But if I want to be happily sober, then maybe, as somebody told me once, and it turned my head around again. I love what people tell me. It was maybe I can try to be a blessing in somebody else's life instead of the great disruptor. Maybe that's a different goal for me. So we can carry that on next time.
That's awesome.
If anybody's still interested.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate all your time and effort and your personal way of making this warm and cozy, and feel like I'm sitting here at a fireside having a chat. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much. Yeah. You just touched on so many things. It's funny. I don't always go back and listen to all the episodes, but you just touched on so much. I'm going to definitely go back and listen to this. Yeah.
Well, tell me if I've misspoken, okay?
No, I mean,
I do sometimes.
Yeah,
I do sometimes.
I hear you. I get it. Yeah. Man. Well, thank you so much, and I guess we'll
thank you.
We'll end it there, and I'm gonna I'll be staying in touch with you. I'll give you a call this week sometime, and
great.
And we'll
I appreciate that.
We'll go over the next part. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paul, and good night.
Thank you. I'll talk to you next time.
Okay.
See you.
Hello. Thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.